So, can you tell the folks who are watching just a little bit about your history with the cello?
Yeah, sure. So I was at a concert. It was a viola cello combo. It was a band called Palmer. They're a brother and sister. They write contemporary pieces over classical music. It's really beautiful. And that was the first time I really saw the cello live. And I guess I didn't really understand it until then. And I was just thought that is such a beautiful instrument. I have to learn to play it. So I just went out and bought a cello, and I guess like probably for the first 6 months, I didn't really have like the time, so I kind of just sat there, and then just like the last few months, I was like, okay, no, like this is something I want to do. Let's take it seriously and start lessons. So, yeah.
So how long have you been at it in total?
Like a few months consistently, maybe. But I've had this cello for almost a year now.
Gotcha. So is there something today that you wanted to play for me and have us work on, or did you just want to like talk technique and kind of go over some of those things?
I mean, technique would be super cool. I'd really like that. The things that I've been working on lately, so I feel like I have basically the first position pretty well down, like pretty consistently. So what I've been trying to do is just try to work up just my scales a little bit further on up the neck or the fingerboard, I guess. I'm a guitarist. So
Gotcha.
I guess this is kind of what I've just been practicing lately. And I find the hardest thing is like the shift from the, I guess, G to the F on like the C minor. So like that. See, I hit it sharp. But just going up the neck like that, and the harmonic as well. But
Yeah.
other than that, I've just been kind of learning like just like expert excerpts or like little things. But I think it's more beneficial to. That's why I'm starting to just play scales and stuff like that, so I get more familiar with the neck and unlock it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Scales are really, really good medicine. It's funny. I actually I didn't even realize until I had been playing cello for quite a while that first position is much harder than the positions up here. Because once you get up here, it feels really natural, right?
Not yet.
Oh, well, compared to down here, at least, I think.
Yeah. I think I guess it would probably depend on your hand type too, because like I play like a baritone guitar, so it's almost like a bass. So I'm almost like I'm used to having my fingers stretched out. So like up here is quite comfortable.
Gotcha.
Up here I'm like, wow, there's no room for error. I'm like a fraction of a centimeter off, and I'm like a sharp, like a whole sharp.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, I'm used to, because I've played cello for a long time and I've gotten used to it, but I have really quite small hands, so I kind of have to do more stretching than I'd like to back here, and I'm trying to do it without tension as much as I can. So it's always welcome for me when I get to be up here, just because it fits better with my hand. But to each their own. So you were saying that shifting is something that you're struggling with.
Yeah.
What's the process like in here when you go to shift?
So I think about, okay, I land the first note, like obviously if I'm not starting in the right place, I'm screwed from the get-go. So I land that first note, make sure the pitch is perfect, and then I will slide, and I guess like I don't know. I think the biggest thing for me is like trying to hit that pitch perfectly, because I'm either a little bit sharp or flat. So I've just been doing it over and over. And also I find when I go to shift, since my left hand speeds up, my right hand speeds up like and then I have no room. And I'm like, oh, what is my bow doing?
It is actually quite natural for the bow to move more when you're shifting. And it's actually something that's encouraged, but then the key is just to not use so much that you run out. So there's a happy medium in there.
Oh, cool.
Because so much of of what we do on the cello each side of our body is very much connected. So like, um, just naturally, I'm already using a little bit more bow for that, just to get up there. And so that's something that's natural, and you should expect it, and it's encouraged to use your bow to help out with shifts. But there's, well, I'll talk about one thing first, which is just, for example, this shift here. If you find yourself overshooting it, I wonder if you can try it in super slow motion. So, I mean, technically what's happening is your first finger is sort of dancing under your fourth finger to get up, or like stepping under it. So one thing to try is start on 4 and then replace it with 1, trying to get to the exact pitch that you want. And then taking this and sliding up really slowly until you get to a G that's perfectly in tune. And then once you get that, you can use that to build your muscle memory. Because essentially the motion that's happening is your first finger going from there to there.
Right.
The other thing, well, that's the main thing. If you want to try that, just starting on 4 and then replacing it with 1, and then.
Cool. Yeah, I would love to. I overshot it again.
It's all right. Just. There it is.
Yeah, that was a good hit.
So spending a lot of time with that is going to help train your muscle memory. And how well do you think that you're hearing the G in your head?
If it's contextual, I think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's relative to something.
Right. So if it's relative to the F here, you're hearing it well in your head exactly as you want it.
I believe so. Yeah, I could be wrong though.
No. I think so too. You seem to have a very good ear. I'm going to suggest though, for the broader audience who's watching this, if you find that it's hard for you to envision that next note, and you're down in specifically here, it can help you to use both strings, play both strings, and just go until you're matching.
Oh, that's smart.
I don't know if that's something that you need, if you're not having trouble actually getting the note in your head, but it's something that can be helpful for some people, I think.
Oh, and it's great to have a reference check too. Like that's awesome. Yeah, I guess you brought up a question when you were talking about. So when you go from so I guess what I was doing before was I was pretty much taking my pinky up to the next note and then catching it with my index finger. But should I be, before I start shifting, should I be shifting my finger and sliding up with my index? So I guess my question is, am I sliding with my pinky and catching with my index finger? Or am I sliding with or I'm just catching with my index finger right away and sliding up?
I believe that you're getting it with the first finger and then sliding. I need to make absolutely sure just by doing it myself in slow motion. It's... I think both are moving, and in general, your hand is moving, but I think... I think what it is that your whole hand is moving, but you put the focus on your first finger by, towards the beginning of the shift, letting go of the other fingers. So now they're... And of course, when you're actually playing, this is just the kind of thing to practice slowly, because when you're actually playing in a faster tempo or something, then you're not going to be actually hearing all of that motion. But there are things to get your muscles to learn. So the whole hand is moving, but the first finger does most of the work here.
So then would it be the opposite when you're sliding back down? Would it be like your index finger starts and then...
I think so, yeah.
Cool.
So in this case, it's a little bit of a... And then this one seems... It feels to me like a little bit more of both. Because... Well, here... Your first finger is already... This is very, very hard to explain. But just because you're going up, it makes it easier to just take this and put it in place of 4. But when you're going down, they can get kind of twisted, it seems. So so this one is actually more like... Oh, no wonder. Sorry. I've been doing this backwards. Give me one.
Oh, yeah. I've done that before as well.
So I think going down, the first finger starts off the motion. It's like a relay race where one finger starts and then the next one sort of takes the baton and keeps going.
Right.
So it's about fluid motions. So here's fourth finger going the first time around the track, and then passes the baton to first finger, who does one more lap.
Cool. Yeah.
It's funny, the more I teach this week, the worse my analogies become. But
no, I like that analogy. It makes sense for sure.
So that's sort of the basic shifting technique, the way that I consider it. Another thing to think about is to lead from your forearm and perhaps even farther up. Because if you try doing it with just the fingers, it's very jerky. And that's not how it sounded from you. And I could tell that you already were using your forearm, but I think it helps to think about it. Definitely, and actually engaging it. The way that I learned was to think about sort of tossing a ball, or even like winding up as a pitcher. And bringing it around a little bit. And bringing it around the other way to go back down. And basically what that does is help you to spend more energy from a larger muscle or group of muscles and less energy in the small muscles where you want to be doing the finer movement.
Cool.
Because if I'm just shifting around without my arm, I mean, I'm dealing with small muscles here, and they are going to get tired, and they might cause me pain, and they might even injure me. And that's not fun. So if I'm just shifting around with, it's very jerky, and it's not as efficient as it could be. That way, I can really lead from the forearm there.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does for sure. Like I find too, another big thing for me is like, yeah, just being really tense. Like, cause I find like I want to get a big sound, I want to push instead of drop my shoulder. You know what I mean? Because I find my
Right.
shoulders are always like, my shoulders and right hand, I find are just always so tense. I always have to constantly be like, relax, drop it, you know, like.
Yep. The shoulder tension was something that I struggled with a lot. And but you're completely right about how your shoulders need to be low. Unlike the violin or the viola, and more like the bass, we have double bass. That is, we have the advantage of gravity. Well, I suppose they have it too in their shoulders to get tone, but I think we have a better advantage just because of our positioning. So we can. It's always a matter of thinking about weight and not pressure. And allowing the weight to flow from your shoulder. Do you ever practice long tones?
Just like open bows. Yeah.
Those are really helpful, especially at the beginning of a practice session, to just find your sound, especially if they're like really slow and really long, because then you can just dig into a string just with weight and just really get as rich of a sound as you can.
Yeah.
Those are definitely really helpful, I think, and I want to start doing them more when I warm up, actually, because they feel so good. Like you feel the back of the cello just resonating, and it's like that sensation of like if you put your ear up to the C peg, not that I recommend that, but good. I think though, if shifting is something that you're concerned about right now and that you're working on, I think that's going to be a really good exercise to help you start out with it.
Thanks. Yeah.
What else has been on your mind when you practice?
So again, so it probably comes down again to do with like tension in the shoulder and the hand, because going from like changing strings, like I'll tend to want to lift my shoulder instead of just like my hand or my wrist. I find another big issue that I have found, like those open bowings help, is like with a mirror, because especially when I get to like the A string, I find I'm not 90 degrees. Like I come up like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess bow angle has definitely been an issue too.
Bow angle is definitely a problem that we face. Let me bring this down a little bit. It's definitely a problem that we face because of the fact that we have this curve here. And of course, the reason for the curve is so that we can just play one string at a time. Because if we were playing on this and it were flat, we would automatically play all four strings at the same time.
Right.
But you are absolutely correct in saying that the motion between strings needs to happen in the fingers and the wrist. So I think that, well, one tip that I learned recently that is really important and that I now teach a lot is to keep your right elbow at a good angle. you actually want both of your elbows to be very well positioned like this, so that there are a lot of good and square angles. So you want it to be relaxed, but you also want your elbow to be high enough so that you can just really cross strings with a very small motion.
Cool.
I was talking about how shifting, you want to engage those big muscles more. Bow changes, I mean string crossings, you want to engage the small muscles more. It's different if you have to like cross over in a really loud passage from the C string over to the A string, then you're obviously going to use some of your arm. Yeah. But for things that are more delicate or just that involve more intricate string crossings or that are faster, like you without having that, because that's an orchestral excerpt from the Beethoven's Eighth Symphony that I've had to play for auditions before, and it's always given me a lot of trouble. And then I learned about this elbow technique, and it suddenly became much easier.
Oh wow!
So that's something that I think is going to help you. And then just still another thing that I imagine you might be annoyed about is, you know, when you have your elbow up and then you realize that your shoulder's creeping up too.
Yeah.
I think this is a time to recognize the fact that your forearm and your upper arm are separate, and allow your elbow to be the place that separates the two. So you want the weight, of course, to be transferred through your upper arm, but you don't want to let the movement of your elbow or your forearm affect how this is. So definitely practicing in front of a mirror is great, and just trying to do a lot of string crossings with open strings, so that you can get that sensation. Or if you don't want to use all open strings, you can stick one here and two here and do some nice C major. But that's, can you give that a try?
Yep, for sure. Feel like I need a mirror now.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. You look very relaxed when you're doing that.
I'm trying to be.
And then how are you holding your bow? Where is your thumb? Can it be a little bit more? So what I'm seeing right now is this, and I wonder if you can bring it in a little bit like that. More like that, but so basically just, let me turn this around, just barely touching in this area and very light, but also just curved a little bit like this. I had an old teacher who would say that it should be like a doorbell, where it's very loose and it sort of comes out a little bit, but you can ring the doorbell.
Oh, like that kind of?
Yeah. It feels really weird, and does it feel like you're about to drop it?
Yeah.
It's to be expected. You're not going to drop it. Hopefully.
I feel like that's a much more natural angle for my hand.
Yeah. And now comes the weight transfer from your shoulder. Ooh. The weight is going to transfer, and basically its ending point is going to be your wrist. And so you want your wrist nice and low, or low enough, not so low that it's collapsing your hand, but you want it at a good angle so that the weight can easily transfer into your hand. And now can you move just trying on the C string, can you move a good bit closer to the bridge?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it even resonates better, honestly.
It does. I mean, where we play it relative to the bridge and the fingerboard is really important, because first of all, it helps you change how much sound you're getting. That's close to the bridge, and here is close to the fingerboard. The closer you get to the bridge, generally, the more sound you can get. But also, if you want to play things that are like really long tones, being closer to the bridge actually gives you more resistance in the bow, so it's harder to pull. And so it'll make it easier to play much longer tones. So I'll show you, I'm quite close to the bridge now. But if I'm very close to the fingerboard, it goes much faster usually. And if I'm not pulling it fast enough, I get these like skips in the sound. So that's something to experiment with too, is getting that that to sound, sorry, is getting the contact point to work for you for what you want to achieve.
Right.
And then as you become more advanced as a cellist, it's a really important tool for actually changing the colors of the sound too, in terms of like the quality and the character of the sound you're getting. There's a Brahms example I seem to always like going to show various things, and you know, if you're quite close to the bridge, it's very like passionate and sweet and full, but I think you can also play it maybe a little closer to the fingerboard, but still in a way that projects and get sort of a more gentle tone. So it's the contact point is an important tool for all levels of cellists, because it can help you do various different things that you want to do, be it whether it's changing the amount of sound you're getting or the quality of sound you're getting or whatever.
It almost sounded like when you did that, it was like you went from like a high treble to like turning the bass up and the treble down when you went further up the fingerboard.
Huh.
Like maybe it's just a zoom, but the tonality, yeah, is totally different. Like,
well, also the yeah, it definitely changes the sound a lot. But especially in the early stages of cello playing, I think it's good to stay on the closer side to the bridge, because the natural tendency for basically any cellist, I think, is to go too close to the fingerboard instead of too close to the bridge. So I think you want to start off by training yourself to be pretty close to the bridge where you can still make a good sound. If you're too close to the bridge, it's probably not what you want, although some composers will ask for that for an effect. But if you're not playing with that as an intended effect, then it's not what you want. So that's another sort of another thing to take to the laboratory and go in and see where your sweet spot is, where you can get a really beautiful tone and have it be full, while not getting too much so that it doesn't sound the way you want it to.
would that change if you're going up and neck because of like the tension change? Like, would you change your bow position based on your finger position?
Not necessarily. I'm trying to think of a good example. So it depends on on what you want to do with dynamics usually, or what you want to do with color of the sound or whatever. Because you can use a bow that's quite close to the fingerboard, both down here and all the way. All the way up to there. You can use a bow that's pretty close to the fingerboard, and you can also go quite close to the bridge for the whole thing. You can kind of ride the bridge more there. So it comes down to an artistic decision. And also, if you're playing from sheet music, the decision to respect the intentions of the composers. So if the composer wants you to get louder as you go up, you may want to think about starting a little bit closer to the fingerboard and transitioning. Whatever it is. Or they might want you to get softer. And then, so I don't think that the hand position itself on the fingerboard actually affects where you're going to place your bow. That's more of a tool of artistic decisions.
Cool. Could you touch on like bow tension and resin, like rosining?
Sure.
As well?
Yeah.
Just like
Okay.
basic
So.
maintenance for that.
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm in the middle of creating an online cello course, and I just scripted the episode about that yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind.
Cool.
So first of all, the bow, you never want it to be too tense, because that can actually it can warp the wood or even potentially break it. What you want to always see is a concave shape, like a little canoe. Which you have. Your bow is at a very good tightness right now.
Great.
You want to see the space between the stick and the hair be wider at the ends than it is in the middle.
Right.
Like you never ever want to see a straight rectangle if you look through your bow.
Right.
So that's the main consideration. Then of course you always have to loosen it when you go to put it in the case. And I think that the right amount of looseness is just where you start to see the hairs relax there. Because even though it's not all the way loosened, all of the tension from the wood is now gone. And you don't want to literally loosen it all the way, because then the screw will come out.
Right.
And maybe the hair will fall out. That's the basics of it. And then for rosining, because obviously you have some rosin on your bow already. If you if you just get a brand new bow, or you get your bow rehaired, then it's likely not going to have any rosin at all. So you're going to have to spend like several minutes probably just rubbing it with rosin. But the keys for rosining, whether or not you're rosining it for the first time ever, or on the new hair or whatever, or you're just touching up the rosin. Number one, I recommend rosining for every approximately 3 hours of playing. And then I actually need a touch-up, I think. So I'll just show you. Got my rosin, and then the key is to just always try and distribute it very evenly. So start here, and you can the silver, I believe it's called the ferrule. The silver here, or whatever it's made of, you can let the cake of rosin just touch it very lightly, and then you can use that, but not, obviously don't hit it with it, but you can use that as sort of your starting place. And then the way that I like to do it is kind of just, let me put the cello down so I don't dust it with rosin. I like to sort of shimmy up the bow gradually. And once I've done that, then just like a few of these, and then you should be ready to go.
Cool.
So you don't want to do it. You don't want to get too much rosin on there either, because then your bow is just going to become too sticky and it's going to be really hard to move. And what rosin do you have? Okay. Oh, D'Addario. Okay. And is that a pretty sticky rosin?
I don't know, man.
Well, I'm only saying this because I really like a sticky rosin. In fact, many years ago, I tried to start a blog called Sticky Rosin. But if you like sticky rosin and you like a lot of bite in the string, I recommend trying rosining your bow in the way that I showed you, and then seeing if it has enough bite for you. And if it doesn't have enough bite for you, there are a couple of really sticky rosins that I like that I can recommend to you. Those I'll send you a link to those on Facebook.
Awesome, thank you.
But this I love my rosin, but I think you have to buy it locally in South Florida. So the rosins though that I recommend are available online, and they're both ones that I think are really, really good.
Awesome. Thanks.
Good. Do you have any other questions I can help you with?
I don't know. I can't think of any, honestly. I have a lot to think about now.
Yeah. Well, I hope you can take what we've talked about and really run with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, the key here is patience. I recognize how frustrating things can get sometimes, but it's just a matter of trusting the process, and just thinking about the fact that that progress takes a while and a lot of dedication. But
yeah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I agree, and that's why I play a lot of different instruments, and I did not realize how difficult the cello would be, honestly, and that's why I didn't pick it up. Like when I bought it and then I started playing, I'm like, there's no frets, I can't hit a tone. There's so much to think about with this thing. My whole body, I have to stretch before. There's so much going on. Like there's so much to think about. I was like, man, this is gonna take, and it's also so frustrating, because hearing those tones that are off is painful. Like you're just like, oh, I don't like this. So you have to struggle through it. Forgive yourself for all these wrong notes. But I do find, since I was like, okay, I'm gonna commit and do it every day or every other day, and I definitely notice my own progress, and it's becoming less frustrating for sure.
Good.
But I definitely have so much more respect for string players. Wow, it's a next level instrument. It's way harder than anything else I've ever learned.
It definitely takes work, and definitely make sure you're always playing in a relaxed manner and just with very good posture, so you don't so you can avoid getting injured, of course, the best you can. And also, I understand the getting very upset when a note is out of tune, but the good news about the fact that upsets you is that it means, number one, that you care, but also that you are able to perceive those differences.
Yeah.
So having the aural ability to do that is something that's very important to develop, and it seems like you've already developed it. So that seems like you're on a good track there, and that's going to serve you well, even if it is upsetting at times.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the encouragement.
Well, it was a pleasure. Thank you, Michael, for joining me in today's cello class. And to all of you watching at home, I hope that you stay safe and healthy, especially nowadays. And I look forward to seeing you in the next class. Until then, take care.